Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this peaceful moment. Take a deep breath, relax your mind, and allow yourself to simply be present right here and right now.
What if I told you there's nothing you need to fix about yourself to be worthy? We spend so much of our lives chasing approval, comparing ourselves, feeling like we're never enough. But Buddhist wisdom reveals something powerful. You're already enough, exactly as you are. Self-esteem doesn't come from chasing validation or achieving more. It comes from stopping the fight with yourself. In this video, you'll learn how to let go of self-criticism, embrace compassion, and discover a deep peace that no one can take away. Ready to see yourself with new eyes? Stick around, this message might change everything. The search for self-esteem in today's world. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need to be confident and secure. But at the same time, we're bombarded with messages that make us question our worth. From the time we're young, we're taught that if we do things right, if we succeed, if we meet expectations, then we'll be loved, accepted, and valued. And if we fail, if we fall short, then our sense of worth seems to crumble. And so, we grow up tied to other people's approval. We look for validation and success in how we look, in what others think of us. Especially now with social media, it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison. You scroll, you compare, and without realizing it, you start to feel like you're not enough. But what happens when that validation doesn't come? Who are you when you stop measuring yourself against others? Buddhism offers us a completely different perspective. It doesn't tell you to build your self-esteem through achievements or through the opinions of others. It invites you to look within and discover a value that isn't tied to anything outside yourself. You're not more valuable because of your successes, and you're not less valuable because of your failures. Your worth is already there. It's always been there. The problem is that we've forgotten how to see it. We've been taught to measure our worth by standards that are completely out of our control. We tell ourselves, I'll be enough when I reach this goal, or I'll be worthy when I look a certain way, or when people finally recognize me. But all of those things are unstable. One day, someone compliments you and you feel great. The next day, someone criticizes you and your confidence crashes. It's a never-ending cycle that keeps us stuck in self-doubt. Buddhism asks a simple but powerful question. If no one was watching you, if there were no comparisons, no social media, no outside expectations, would you still feel like you weren't enough? That question alone can change everything, because it pushes you to look beyond appearances. It invites you to stop defining yourself by what you have or what you achieve, and to start connecting with who you really are. The real problem isn't a lack of self-esteem, it's how we've learned to value ourselves. Instead of recognizing ourselves as already whole, we've fallen into the trap of thinking we have to be more, do more, prove more. But Buddhism reminds us that true peace doesn't come from trying to fit in or stand out. It comes from deeply accepting who you already are. That doesn't mean giving up on growth or settling for less. It means understanding that your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something you have to earn. From the moment we're born, society starts to shape us. We're taught what's right, what's desirable, what makes us valuable. Over time, those outside voices become our inner voice. We end up talking to ourselves in ways we would never talk to a friend. We're hard on ourselves. We criticize everything we do. We punish ourselves for not being perfect. But Buddhism offers a different approach. It teaches us to observe those thoughts without becoming them. To understand that the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough isn't telling the truth. It's just repeating old stories you've picked up along the way. Those stories don't define you. You're not your insecurities. You're not your mistakes. You're not your doubts. You are something much deeper than all of that. This isn't about pumping yourself up with motivational quotes or pretending everything's fine. It's about getting to the root of the problem. When your self-worth depends on comparisons and outside approval, it's fragile. One moment you feel great, and the next, a small failure or criticism makes you question everything. But when you learn to see yourself through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, you realize your worth is unshakable. It's not tied to anyone else's opinion. It doesn't go away because you made a mistake. It's always there. This journey isn't about quick fixes or magic formulas. It's about unlearning the old patterns and reconnecting with the peace that's already inside you. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to chase impossible standards. You just need to start seeing yourself through the eyes of compassion, acceptance, and authenticity. And that's where we're headed in this series. In the next chapters, we'll explore how to bring this wisdom into your daily life. We'll look at the practices that help you build a healthy sense of self and how Buddhist teachings can free you from the constant weight of comparison and self-criticism. If you've ever felt like you're not enough, or like you're always falling short, this path can change your life. The Buddhist perspective on the self and self-esteem. Most people try to build self-esteem by strengthening their identity. They work hard to convince themselves they're valuable, special, or better in some way. Maybe you've done this, trying to prove yourself through achievements, appearances, or recognition. It's how we've been taught. But Buddhism points out something important. The problem isn't that we don't believe we're good enough. The problem is that we're holding on too tightly to an idea of who we think we're supposed to be. From the time we're children, we're handed labels: smart, successful, shy, too much, not enough. We carry these labels with us, and over time they become how we define ourselves. We get attached to them, whether they're positive or negative. If someone tells you you're good at something, you hold on to that. You feel proud. But if someone questions you or criticizes you, it hurts because it shakes the identity you've worked so hard to build. We end up living in this constant tension, trying to hold on to the good labels and push away the bad ones. But what if we aren't those labels at all? What if we've mistaken our passing thoughts, feelings, and experiences for who we are? Buddhism invites us to look closely at this. Who are you really, when all those labels and stories fall away? If one day you feel confident and the next you feel unsure, which one is the real you? If your emotions are always changing, if your sense of self shifts depending on the situation, then maybe the self you're trying to protect is just a collection of thoughts and feelings that come and go. And here's the key. If your sense of self is unstable, then your self-esteem will be unstable too. Building your worth on top of a constantly changing identity is like trying to build a house on shifting sand. No matter how solid it feels one day, it can fall apart the next. Buddhism offers a different approach. Instead of getting caught up in who you think you are or who you think you should be, it teaches you to let go of that rigid idea of self, to release the need to constantly define yourself. When you loosen your grip on that identity, something surprising happens. The fear of not being enough starts to disappear. You stop feeling like you have to prove anything to anyone. You start to experience a deep sense of freedom. This doesn't mean you stop growing or improving. It doesn't mean you give up on becoming the best version of yourself. But it changes the reason why you grow. Instead of trying to fix yourself or earn approval, you grow because it's natural, because you're curious, because you enjoy learning and experiencing life without the pressure to measure up. The Buddhist view encourages a more flexible understanding of who we are. You're not just your achievements, you're not your mistakes, you're not even the opinions other people have about you. You are a living, breathing, ever-changing experience. And when you accept this, you stop clinging to an ideal image of yourself. You stop trying to fit into someone else's expectations. You give yourself permission to just be. And here's where real peace begins. When you no longer define yourself by rigid labels, the pressure lifts. You no longer need to be enough by anyone's standards. You no longer have to be perfect. You can relax into who you are in this moment, knowing that's all you ever need to be. This shift changes how you speak to yourself. It softens your inner dialogue. You're less critical, less demanding, and more understanding. You stop measuring your worth by how productive you are or how others see you. You simply exist, and that's enough. When you stop trying to control how you're seen and instead focus on how you experience yourself, life gets lighter. You feel more grounded, and your sense of worth no longer depends on external approval. This perspective isn't something you grasp once and then it's done. It's a practice. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old habits of judging yourself. But each time you remember, each time you let go of that need to define yourself, you'll feel freer, and over time, that freedom grows. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to put this into practice. Simple, grounded ways to build a healthier, more peaceful relationship with yourself through Buddhist teachings. We hold ourselves to impossible standards, and when we fall short, we punish ourselves with criticism and guilt. Buddhism teaches us that this lack of compassion toward ourselves is one of the deepest sources of suffering. The mind thinks it's being helpful by pointing out everything that's wrong, by keeping us in line. But the truth is, when we're caught in constant self-judgment, we close the door to growth. We get stuck in shame and fear, and those are not places where we thrive. Compassion is not about excusing our mistakes or avoiding responsibility. It's about meeting ourselves where we are, with understanding and kindness. It's about saying, yes, I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me unworthy. That makes me human. And there's a huge difference between growth that comes from shame and growth that comes from compassion. Shame says, I'm not enough. Compassion says, I'm learning. Imagine someone you love is having a hard time. Maybe they failed at something important to them. You wouldn't tell them they're useless or that they'll never get it right. You'd listen. You'd remind them of their strengths. You'd stay by their side until they found their footing again. That's what compassion looks like. And that's what we need to offer ourselves. In Buddhism, there's a practice called metta, or loving kindness, that helps us develop this quality. You sit quietly and you offer well wishes, first to yourself, then to others. You might say, may I be happy, may I be safe, may I be free from suffering. At first it can feel uncomfortable. We're so used to ignoring our own needs that being kind to ourselves feels unnatural. But over time, something shifts. We begin to soften. We begin to heal. Self-compassion doesn't mean we stop aiming to do better. It means we stop tearing ourselves apart in the process. It gives us the strength to keep going, not because we feel we're broken, but because we understand we're worth the effort. It's the fuel for true self-acceptance, which doesn't mean settling, but embracing ourselves fully, including the messy parts. And there's something else important here. Compassion connects us to others. Buddhism teaches that suffering is universal. Every person you meet is carrying their own invisible weight. When we realize we're not alone in our struggles, something powerful happens. We stop feeling isolated. We stop believing we're the only ones who feel afraid or insecure. Compassion opens the door to connection, to community, and to a deeper sense of belonging. Self-acceptance doesn't come from reaching some perfect version of yourself. It comes from embracing who you are right now, in this moment. It's understanding that you can be a work in progress and still be enough. You can have areas you want to grow in and still deserve kindness. You can be healing and still be whole. The practice of compassion toward yourself and others creates the space for that truth to take root. And once it does, you begin to experience a different kind of peace. One that doesn't depend on external approval, one that isn't shaken by mistakes or setbacks. It's a peace that comes from knowing you are already enough. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to quiet the voice of self-criticism using meditation and mindfulness. Simple practices that make a big difference when they become part of your life. Overcoming self-criticism through meditation and mindfulness. That critical voice inside your head. We all have it. The one that points out every flaw, replays every mistake, and tells you you're not good enough. Maybe it whispers, maybe it shouts, but either way, it drains you. And for many of us, we've listened to it for so long that it's hard to imagine life without it. But Buddhism doesn't try to silence that voice by force. Instead, it teaches us to change the way we relate to it. Rather than fighting self-criticism, we learn to step back, observe it, and choose not to let it control us. This is where meditation becomes such a powerful tool, not because it makes the thoughts disappear, but because it helps you see them for what they really are. Just thoughts, not facts, not truths. Just mental events passing through your mind like clouds drifting across the sky. Imagine sitting quietly, focusing on your breath. A thought pops up, I'm failing. You notice it. You take a breath. And instead of believing it or getting caught in it, you simply watch it float by. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to argue with it. You just let it go. Over time, this practice creates space inside you, a space where you are no longer trapped by self-judgment. You become the observer, not the prisoner. Mindfulness, or present moment awareness, deepens this freedom. Self-criticism often comes from getting stuck in the past or worrying about the future. We replay the things we said wrong. We dread what might go wrong tomorrow. Mindfulness brings you back here to what's happening right now. And right now, you are okay. Right now, you are breathing. You are alive. And that's enough. Even a simple mindfulness practice, like paying attention to the sensation of your feet on the floor or the rhythm of your breath, can shift your focus. It grounds you. It quiets the noise. And the more you do it, the more you realize you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you. You have a choice. One powerful technique is the practice of compassionate questioning. When you catch yourself in self-criticism, gently ask, is this true? Often we find that these harsh judgments aren't based on reality. They're old stories, fears, habitual ways of thinking that no longer serve us. You can even ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then it's time to offer yourself a kinder thought. Another helpful practice is using compassionate phrases or mantras. They're like reminders that bring you back to the truth. Simple phrases like, I am learning, or I am doing my best, can soften the edges of harsh self-talk. They don't have to be dramatic or grand, just honest, just kind. And here's something important to remember. This isn't about getting rid of self-criticism forever. That's not realistic. The goal is to change your relationship with it, to recognize it when it shows up, to greet it with understanding, and to make a different choice. You can say, I see you, I know where you come from, but I don't have to believe you today. The more you practice meditation and mindfulness, the easier it becomes to find that space between hearing the critical thought and reacting to it. And in that space, there's peace, there's power, there's freedom. When you stop letting self-criticism run your life, something shifts inside you. You become more open, more patient, and you begin to experience yourself differently, not as someone who's broken or lacking, but as someone who's whole, even with imperfections. In the next chapter, we'll dive into real-life stories, people who've used these practices to transform their self-esteem and their lives, real-life stories of transformation through Buddhist practices. Sometimes ideas sound good in theory, but we need proof they work in real life. We need stories. Stories of people who were struggling just like us, who found a way to heal and transform through practice. And while Buddhist teachings are ancient, they're just as relevant today. The stories you're about to hear aren't fairy tales of instant enlightenment. They're real human experiences of people who slowly, steadily change their relationship with themselves, often in small but powerful ways. Let's begin with the story of Thich Nhat Hanh. He's one of the most respected Buddhist teachers of our time, but he didn't start his life as a peaceful master living in a monastery. He was a young monk in Vietnam during a time of war and devastation. He witnessed unimaginable suffering, violence, loss, pain. He could have easily been consumed by anger or despair, but instead he turned to mindfulness and compassion as his refuge. He practiced being fully present, even in the midst of chaos, and cultivated compassion not just for others, but for himself. Through that practice, he found an inner peace that no war could destroy, and he dedicated his life to teaching others how to find that same peace within themselves. His life is a reminder that even in the worst circumstances, we can choose how we respond. We can choose healing over hatred, peace over fear. Then there's the story of Pema Chodron. Long before she became a Buddhist nun and author, she was just a woman going through a painful divorce, feeling lost and broken. Her world had collapsed, and she was left with a deep sense of failure and unworthiness. But instead of running away from her pain, she turned toward it. She started meditating. She studied Buddhist teachings on compassion and non-attachment. And little by little, she realized she didn't have to be perfect to be at peace. She could be flawed, heartbroken, messy, and still be whole. Pema's teachings today reach millions of people because she speaks from that raw, lived experience. She teaches that the path to freedom doesn't start with fixing yourself. It starts with accepting yourself exactly as you are. But this isn't just about well-known teachers. Ordinary people, people like you and me, are finding transformation through Buddhist practice every day. There's a story of a young man who grew up believing he wasn't good enough. His childhood was marked by criticism. No matter how hard he tried, it was never enough for his parents. As he grew older, that critical voice followed him everywhere. It was in his career, his relationships, and even in the way he talked to himself. One day, out of sheer exhaustion, he stumbled upon a meditation class. At first he thought it was silly, but he kept showing up. 10 minutes a day, then 15. Slowly, he learned to sit with his thoughts without reacting to them, and for the first time he realized, I am not these thoughts. They don't control me. That space he found during meditation expanded into his daily life. He became kinder to himself. He stopped measuring his worth by achievements. Today, he says he's still learning, still growing, but he finally feels free from the weight of not being enough. And then there's the woman who spent years feeling trapped by her appearance. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw what she thought was wrong. She chased diets, beauty treatments, anything that promised to make her feel worthy, but nothing ever did. It wasn't until she attended a Buddhist retreat that things shifted. She was introduced to loving-kindness meditation and asked to send kind wishes to herself. Felt strange at first. She had spent so long criticizing herself that kindness felt uncomfortable, but she stayed with it. Each morning she whispered, "May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I accept myself." It took time, months, but slowly she noticed the harshness fading. She began to appreciate her body, not for how it looked, but for what it allowed her to do. She ran with her kids in the park. She laughed with friends. She felt strong. She felt alive. And in that acceptance, she found a beauty she had never seen before. These stories may seem different, but they share the same heart. They are stories of people turning inward, not to find something wrong, but to find something true. Through Buddhist practices, meditation, mindfulness, compassion, they each learned to stop fighting with themselves. They learned to soften, to let go. And in that letting go, they found peace. But here's something important. Their journeys weren't perfect. They had days when they felt stuck, days when they doubted themselves. And that's okay. The Buddhist path isn't about perfection. It's about showing up again and again with patience and kindness, even when it's hard. And that's why these stories matter. They remind us that change is possible, that healing doesn't happen in an instant, but it does happen with small steps, with steady practice, with compassion. You don't need to become someone else to find peace. You just need to be willing to meet yourself where you are right now. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to take these teachings and weave them into the fabric of your everyday life. Simple, practical ways to live this truth, not just understand it. By trusting the flow of life and embracing the teachings of detachment and self-compassion, we've come a long way together. From recognizing how the world shapes our sense of self-worth, to discovering how Buddhist wisdom allows us to see ourselves differently, from learning to quiet the voice of self-criticism, to showing ourselves compassion in ways we may never have before. And if there's one truth that ties all of this together, it's this: what is meant for you will come, and you don't need to force it. We live in a world that teaches us to chase, to push harder, to control every outcome as if our happiness depends on it. But what we've uncovered here is something far more powerful: the art of letting go. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you give up on your dreams or stop taking action. It means you stop holding on to how things must be. You trust that life, in its own time and way, will bring you exactly what you need. And when you start practicing this trust, something shifts within you. You find yourself worrying less about how you compare to others. You stop measuring your worth by things that can change in an instant. You begin to realize that your value was never something to earn. It's something that has always been within you. You were enough all along. You just needed to remember. This is the essence of detachment, not turning away from life, but embracing it with open hands, offering your efforts, your love, your presence, without expecting anything in return. You show up, you do your part, and then you let go of the outcome. And in that release, there is space. Space for peace, space for joy, space for life to surprise you in ways you never imagined. Now, living this way isn't something you master overnight. It's a practice. There will be days when the old habits of control and comparison return. And that's okay. You're human. What matters is that each time you notice, you guide yourself back. Back to the present moment. Back to trust. Back to compassion. For yourself and for others. If there's one thing to take from this journey, let it be this: you don't have to chase your worth. You are already enough, right here, right now. And when you start living from that truth, life begins to unfold in ways you never expected. So keep going, keep practicing, be kind to yourself along the way. And if this message spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more we can explore together. More wisdom, more practices, more stories to bring peace and clarity to your life. And I'd love to hear from you. Which part of today's video resonated with you the most? Is there something you're ready to let go of? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's support each other on this journey, because we're all in this together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this moment for yourself. I'll see you in the next video.